Do you ever wonder why you feel so hungry or find yourself wanting to eat and eat, but no matter how much you consume, you never feel satisfied? This episode explores the deeper hungers that food can never fill and what to do when you recognize them. Welcome to Binge Eating Breakthrough, the podcast to help you stop feeling out of control around food and build trust with your body. If you've tried everything but still feel stuck, you're not alone. I've been there too. I'm Jane Pilger, and I'm here to help you see binge eating in a new way so you can finally break free. Each week, you'll get the tools and insights to create peace with food and your body. Your breakthrough starts now. Hello, trusted listener. I consider you a trusted listener because I trust that you're ready to explore the deeper layers of hunger. The ones that go beyond physical nourishment. I trust that you're willing to look at the hungers that food can never satisfy, no matter how much you eat. And I trust that you're open to discovering what you're really seeking when food feels like the only answer. Today, we're diving into one of the most profound aspects of our relationship with hunger. The hunger that no amount of food can satisfy. If you've ever found yourself eating and eating, going back to the kitchen multiple times, searching for something but never finding it in food, this episode is for you. Now, this episode is a continuation of an entire series we've been doing on hunger. And if you have missed any of the previous episodes, I will link them all in the show notes so that you can go back and explore. Hunger is such a complicated topic. And the goal of this series has been to really dive in and explore all the different nuances and aspects of hunger. So as we dive into this topic, let me ask you this. Do you ever wonder why you feel so hungry sometimes? Or do you ever feel like you just want to eat and eat and eat, but no matter how much food you consume, you simply don't feel satisfied? When this happens, it's typically another type of hunger. It's not physical hunger for food, and often not even emotional hunger in the way we talked about in the previous episode in this series. It's what I call a non-food hunger, a deeper need that you're trying to meet through eating. Now, let's quickly revisit the difference between physical and emotional hunger so we're all on the same page. And if you want a deeper dive into this, be sure to go click on the previous episode that we did on the difference between physical and emotional hunger. But just as a recap, physical hunger builds gradually. It can usually be satisfied by a variety of foods, and it feels patient. Emotional hunger comes on quickly. It often wants something specific, and it feels urgent. Now, both of these types of hunger can often be satisfied. Physical hunger gets satisfied with food, and emotional hunger can be satisfied with food and addressing the underlying emotion. Not without addressing the underlying emotion. We have to address the underlying emotion in addition. But non-food hunger is different. It's when you're trying to use food to meet a need that food simply cannot meet, no matter how much you eat. So, what might you actually be hungry for when food won't satisfy? You might be hungry for emotional connection, for validation, for someone to really see you and understand you. You might be hungry to feel like you're not alone, or to feel like what you're doing in your life matters and has meaning. You might be hungry for expression, needing to be heard, to communicate feelings, especially difficult ones like anger or frustration, or to have your voice matter when you don't have the words or skills to express yourself directly. This one is so familiar to me. I remember eating at my husband when I was angry. I would think, I'll show him by eating, even though he never felt the impact of my eating. I didn't have the skills to use my words in conflict, so I ate in an attempt to express myself when I couldn't find my voice. You might be hungry for a spiritual connection, for something that gives your life deeper meaning. You might be hungry for adventure or novelty if you're feeling like you're stuck in routine and that you need excitement or new experiences. Sometimes you're hungry for rest and peace. When you're constantly on and your system is craving stillness or mental quiet. Or you might be hungry for a sense of accomplishment if you're feeling unproductive or like you're not moving toward your goals. You might be hungry for safety and security when you're feeling uncertain or overwhelmed by life changes. Sometimes the simplest explanation is that you're just tired, physically, emotionally, or mentally exhausted, and food feels like the only comfort available. So how do you know when you're experiencing this type of hunger? Often, you know it's not physical hunger, but it feels impossible not to eat. I used to describe it as my skin crawling or feeling like I wanted to come out of my skin. It feels all-consuming, like food is the only thing that would satisfy. But when you start eating, the food doesn't actually satisfy you. You keep eating, still not feeling satisfied, but still wanting more food. I used to be so confused by this. I would eat and eat, sometimes going back and forth between sweet things and salty, crunchy things, but never feeling satisfied. I would eat until I simply couldn't eat anymore. Either I would be sweating or in so much physical pain that I could not continue eating. But then sometimes, even a very short time later, I would be thinking about food again, still unsatisfied and still looking for something else. Now, other signs include disconnection from your body, your mind, your thoughts, your experience. I used to say I was slamming the door on myself with food, or sometimes I refer to it as turning the lights off. I would be so surprised at the volume of food I could eat during these episodes when I could never physically eat that much food if I stayed connected to myself. Now, you might notice the food doesn't taste as good as you expected during the eating experience. I have a lot of times clients will say to me, I didn't even like it, but I couldn't stop. I knew I wasn't even enjoying it. You might also find yourself eating while doing other things, scrolling on your phone, watching TV, working, completely disconnected from the act of eating itself. You might go back to the kitchen multiple times, opening cabinets and the refrigerator, looking for the right thing, but never finding it. There's this feeling like you're searching for something, but you don't know what. And this type of hunger often leads to binge eating patterns because you're trying to meet an unmet need with food. And then there's often the shame and judgment that comes after the eating experience, which creates another uncomfortable feeling that you want to get away from. And often the way you've learned to escape uncomfortable feelings is through eating again, which keeps you trapped in the cycle. Now, from an internal family systems perspective, there's a part of you that wants to eat and disconnect with food. And there's another part of you that knows the food won't satisfy what you're really seeking. And being able to name both parts helps give you some separation between yourself and the part that wants to eat and thinks that food is the only answer. So you might be wondering, what do you do when you recognize this type of hunger? First, know your patterns and name them. Start to recognize when this type of hunger shows up for you. What situations trigger it? What emotions or circumstances tend to come before it? And when you notice it happening, remind yourself that no amount of food will satisfy this particular hunger. This can be so hard to remember in the moment, but it's true. The food might provide temporary numbing or distraction, but it won't actually meet the underlying need. You can also do this. You can fast forward to how you'll feel in 5 minutes, 5 hours, or 5 days if you try to use food to meet this need. Usually, you'll still have the original unmet need, plus you'll likely feel physically uncomfortable and emotionally frustrated. You can pause and ask yourself, what do I really need right now besides food? This question can help you identify the actual hunger underneath the food craving. Now, it's important not to say, don't eat, I'm not allowed to eat. We don't want to say that food is not allowed. That will just create even more desire for it. But if food isn't it, what do I really need right now? What do I need right now besides food? It helps us get underneath the craving. You can try setting a timer for 10 minutes just to see, will this feeling shift? Or can I get more clear on what it is that I'm actually seeking? You can do a body scan. You can tune in to what you're feeling physically versus emotionally. And sometimes tuning in and trying to distinguish can help you distinguish between the different types of hunger. What do I notice in my body, in my belly, in my mind? What else am I noticing? You can also consider opposite action. So if the urge, the desire is to disconnect through food, try connecting instead. Call someone. Go outside. Engage in any activity that brings you back to connection with yourself or others. You can connect with yourself by writing in a journal. You can connect with yourself by putting on a guided meditation. The key here is to get curious about what the deeper hunger might be, and then experiment with ways to address that need directly. If you're hungry for connection, reach out to a friend. If you're hungry for expression, try writing or having a conversation where you practice using your voice. If you're hungry for rest, consider actually resting instead of eating. Now, this connects to everything we've been exploring in this series on hunger. It's not about the food. It's about what's happening underneath. Your body is always communicating with you, and sometimes that communication is about needs that go far beyond physical nourishment. Now, don't get me wrong, physical nourishment is very important, and the way that we nourish ourselves physically absolutely impacts our physical hunger. It impacts our emotion. It impacts our needs. It is very important. But these aren't the only types of hunger. And when you start to recognize and address these deeper hungers directly, several things happen. First, you stop expecting food to do something it was never meant to do. Second, you start meeting your actual needs, which feels so much more satisfying than trying to fill them with food. And third, you begin to trust yourself to know the difference between what you truly need and what might just be a habitual response. Now, this work requires patience and compassion with yourself. These patterns often develop because food was the most available or acceptable way to meet certain needs. There is nothing wrong with you for developing these patterns. They made sense given your circumstances and resources. But now you can start to expand your options. You can learn to recognize when you're trying to use food to meet a non-food need, and you can start experimenting with more direct ways to care for yourself. Remember, what you focus on expands. If you focus on fighting these urges or judging yourself for having them, that internal struggle will expand. But if you focus on getting curious about what you really need and exploring ways to meet those needs directly, that self-awareness and self-care will expand instead. So this week, I invite you to notice if and when you experience this type of hunger. When you feel the urge to eat, but you suspect it might not be about food, pause and ask yourself, what am I really hungry for right now? You don't have to have the perfect answer or the perfect response. Chances are the first time you ask, you're going to be like, I have no idea. Food. I want this very specific food. But just practice getting curious about the deeper layers of your experience. Your body is always communicating with you, and sometimes that communication is about needs that go far beyond what food can provide. And learning to listen to and honor these deeper hungers and your deeper needs is one of the most loving things you can do for yourself. And if you want help distinguishing between these different types of hunger and learning to meet your deeper needs without relying on food, I invite you to reach out and schedule a breakthrough call to see what it would be like to work together. You don't have to navigate this alone. So often we don't know. It takes someone else to help us explore and help us tune in. You have the answers inside you. Sometimes we just don't know how to extract them. And someone else alongside you can help you access that wisdom that is within you inherently. All right, next week, we are going to wrap up this series on hunger by exploring why the advice to just eat when you're hungry and stop when you're full doesn't work for so many people and what to do instead. But until then, remember that your hungers, all of them, are information about what you need to live a full and satisfying life. I'll see you next week. If you're listening to this episode live in the fall of 2025, check out the Binge Eating Breakthrough book experience in the show notes. And if you're listening to this at a later time, that same link will take you to my book where you can dive deeper into everything we talked about today and start creating your own breakthrough with food. janepilger.com/book.